I want to watch this Lett video. Now, if anybody has to go, that's fine. I know we've been going for a while here, but I want to watch this.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. I can do one more video.
We're going to do one more. We're going to close it out strong if this page ever loads. All right, good. And I have a feeling this is going to be absolutely infuriating. Why did Israel go to war, but why don't Christians today? Oy vey. So I think we're going to be seeing something that invariably triggers me, which is justifications of biblical violence.
Yep.
I despise this.
Now, there is this saying
There's
that
no
war
okay.
can't kill love, but love can kill war. And Jehovah's Witnesses truly exemplify that saying. All of man's horrible wars have not killed off the love of Jehovah's people. In fact, made it stronger.
Or anybody's people anywhere.
Their love has killed off war among their ranks and even from within their hearts.
But not theocratic war.
1 John 3.
Not theocratic warfare.
Talking about practical war here, folks. Let's not get this confused. Practical war.
No.
Not theocratic
And like
war.
there is going to be the Great War of Armageddon, in which Stephen Lett specifically will be trained on how to do heaven war and fight soldiers and tanks and stuff. But like for the most part, war, like we don't get conscripted to the army. And
10 through 12, in essence, says the children of God and the children of the devil are evident by this fact. The children of God love their brothers. The children of the devil slaughter their brothers like Cain slaughtered his brother.
Wow.
But sometimes in the ministry and...
What do we do with people who aren't a believer in God or anything, but also are pacifists and don't go to war or conscientious objectors? Is that...
Well, they're bad because they're not for Jehovah. You're either for Jehovah or against Jehovah. It's like kind of a George W. Bush situation. You're either for them or you're against them. There's no in between.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Black and white thinking. They don't like the in-betweens.
In other places, when we try to bring up our stand regarding not participating in war, our Christian neutrality.
Yes. All right, everybody. I want you to do something. I want you to do a staring contest with Stephen Lett. I want you to see if you can look into this man's vacuous mannequin face and not see the abyss staring back at you.
Gaze upon Libya, folks.
The ministry and other places, when we try to bring up our stand regarding not participating in war, our Christian neutrality, people will bring up the objection about the Israelites. They'll say, well, they were God's people. They fought war, so why can't Christians fight in war?
Oh, okay, he did it. He blinked a little bit just once. I hated that.
Oh, man.
Well, this is interesting. He's bringing up a legitimate objection that somebody might bring up. They don't always do that. There's a lot of war in the Bible. Israelites went to war. Why can't Christians fight in wars? I gotta say, I don't find many people who are like super excited about fighting in wars these days.
Yeah,
that's
not the main
about?
thing that people go for after Jehovah's Witnesses for. Like that.
Yeah,
I don't think
fighting in wars is awesome.
This just plays on. Yeah, this
why I
plays on
left.
the narrative of what Jehovah's Witnesses think will happen and is happening, and how the Jehovah's Witnesses think the world works. But this is not the way that the world works. The world isn't like, oh, we are Jehovah's Witnesses, but it's just you don't join wars like the Israelites. So like I don't like no, that's not a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like even Christian nationalists and people who like Christians who are willing to go to war, I think that they view war as a necessary evil and probably envision that God's kingdom and his theocracy will get rid of war as we know it. I don't know.
I mean, the only ones who get excited about war and genocide and all that shit is Jehovah's Witnesses. Like those are the only ones who like think about Armageddon and rejoice. Oh my God,
Armageddon is good news, they say.
You need to play that because Stephen Lett is just staring into my soul.
Armageddon is good news.
How do you deal with that argument? Well, if you're going to overcome that, you obviously have to show them there's a vast difference between the Israelites in Bible times and true Christians today. In fact, let's briefly discuss five different.
Let's take he's saying it's an argument that's because the Israelites did this. Why aren't we doing it? And yes, that's the argument they used for the previous video, that the Israelites did this, therefore we should do this. So while we listen to this, let's recontextualize the argument to what was made in the previous video and see maybe there's some contradictions in what he says here. Maybe he's got some double standards going on here. Maybe. We'll see. Great
point. Great point. We just watched a video where the Israelites did it, so should you, was the key argument.
Yes.
And now...
Okay, but there's 5 differences.
Yeah.
A number list.
Differences. Number 1, in the days of the Israelites, God's people were gathered into one nation. So when they went into battle against the pagan nations, they weren't killing fellow believers. They weren't killing their brothers.
They were killing
but today,
no
Revelation
problem.
7:9 says that the great crowd of...
Yeah.
There's lots of non-believers to kill.
No problem.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, listen, isn't the main difference that just God told them that they had to do it? That back then, if you believe the Bible is true, that it was just God constantly saying, hey, you got to go over there and kill those people. And so what are you going to do? Say no to God? Like, that's the difference.
Technically, it was a guy saying God said it.
And really exactly. We know that. But they, from their logic, would say, well, God told him to.
True Christians is scattered in all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. So if Christians participated in war today, what would happen? We would end up killing fellow believers, our brothers. And of course, we know that is happening among ones who claim to be God's people who take up the sword.
And that's a bad thing about killing people. Like, you can kill people if they don't believe what you believe in. But if they believe what you believe in, that's when killing is wrong. So, that would
be bad.
Have you thought of that?
You might accidentally kill a Jehovah's Witness, if you do the wrong kind of war. This is a pretty weak argument, I would say.
It's not the killing. It's not the killing part. It's the you might accidentally kill someone who's like you, which is
I remember
completely twisted.
At Patterson, I think it was. I went on like Bethel tours probably in like 2013 or something. No. It was when they were building Warwick and stuff. So this was like 2016 or something. They had this experience about like 2 brothers who went to war against their will or something. They felt bad about it, and they were on the battlefield, and they were about to kill each other, and then they realized that they were both Jehovah's Witnesses, so they didn't, and they just dropped their guns and embraced. Isn't that beautiful?
That definitely happened.
It totally happened, and everyone clapped in heaven.
Their fellow Catholics.
Read about that in Job.
We find the same thing among the Methodists, the Baptists, Muslims, slaughtering members of their own religion.
Hey, you know what you'll also find is a lot of Catholics and Muslims and Baptists who are also anti-war and who don't go to war.
Yep.
Like, they're not a monolith. There are still, like, people, regardless of religion or not being religious at all, who are anti-war.
Makes me think of a conversation I had many years ago
the old Cherokee
with a high-ranking Mormon elder.
What?
And I asked him, I said, well, what is your position on war?
High-ranking?
We don't like war. I said, but what do you do, though? If you're living in a country at a time, there's a draft, you're drafted into the military. He said, well, if the government makes this to us, it's their responsibility. We go ahead and fight. I said, do you then kill another Mormon on the battlefield? Because I know you have Mormons in many different countries. He said, well, if I knew he was a Mormon, I'd let him go.
Gotcha.
I said, but normally it's not possible to check with each person before you shoot them.
Wow. Stephen Lett destroys Mormon elder with facts and logic.
Got it.
No, like play just a little bit. Play the next sentence that he says.
Okay.
Well, he didn't admit it, but obviously he got the point that was made there.
Wow. I love that even in his story, he didn't convince anybody. Like, this is his story.
He didn't quite get it, but I was right.
He's a governing body member. And even in his story, he's like, well, I mean, I didn't convince him. It's just so stupid. And also, it is extra stupid because, first of all, because of that face, like, wonderful pause face. But second, because Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the one person who can kill people that Jehovah wants to resurrect is Jehovah. Like, if Jehovah does that, like with Sodom and Gomorrah and all of that shit, well, we don't know. Like, Jehovah destroyed them, but like we don't know. Like he may bring him back, but if you do it, like that's bad, right? Like, Jehovah is only happy when he accidentally kills people that he doesn't want to kill. You're not allowed to make that mistake.
Remember, folks, what Danny just said there. Remember, folks, true worshipers let God do the killing, unless you're Israelites. In that case, you do the killing. But
unless he tells you that you can do it.
Nowadays, God does the killing.
That's exactly right. Now, what if he talked to an elder of a Jain church, or a religion that defines themselves by not going to war? Yeah, I guess he wouldn't have had such a cool story to tell.
Second difference. Jehovah God, who can read hearts, personally judged as worthy of execution.
Oh, wait, can you pause?
The people the Israelites went up against.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to talk about like this comment that you just got from Jay. As much as I dislike the guy, that comment on the Mormon leader was on point. I disagree with that. I believe, I think it would be a far more, it would speak to a far more powerful God if you believe that you, as say a Mormon, can go to war against like another country that also has Mormons, and God will protect you both because you're part of God's like chosen people, right? So you're like, no, it's fine because God wouldn't allow me to kill like a fellow Mormon, at least a fellow Mormon that wouldn't deserve it. I feel like that speaks to a far better God than the God that Stephen Lett is like, oh, we can't do it because only God is allowed to kill people accidentally. Like, I feel like that's a weaker God. I don't know. I'm just saying.
It would be. I agree. It would be. I absolutely agree. It'd be far more impressive if you are a true Christian and you have to go to war because hey, Nazis are rampaging. You have to go to war. You got to stop them. You say a little prayer, and then you look up and you see arrows pointing down to all the non-Christians. You're like, oh, I'll just shoot those guys. Okay.
Yeah, God would just direct your shooting, and you won't shoot to somebody who doesn't deserve it. That's it.
Yeah, just spray up into the sky, and each bullet, like Fifth Element, just boom, go to their targets, and
exactly.
Or like that kind of auto aim gun
God doesn't
in the
exist,
Alien
you guys.
movie.
I know.
It is almost like that. No, but God is able to see who is worthy of being executed. Sounds like an awesome God. Who deserves to be executed?
He directly told them to execute his judgment on these demon-worshiping people.
Including women and children, by the way.
Included gross sexual immorality, even child sacrifice. Open up to Leviticus.
Whoa. What? But also, like...
Talking about those Midianites.
I was say God allowed the rape of women too, so I'm just gonna skip a little bit
on these people. Now here's our third difference: the Israelite wars kill selectively. No, so we have just two examples of many that could be related.
It was very selective.
Chapters.
It was the men.
What's that?
It was very selective. It was the men, the women, the male children, and only the daughters who were virgins. Or I'm sorry, they were not virgins. Those were that was the selective killing.
But because if they're virgins, you can just keep to yourself. As Stephen Lett is going to say, it's going to be like it was a very loving provision.
It was very loving provision.
That's valuable property in Bible times.
Letting those deeply traumatized little girls be captured and brought into.
Oh, he's gonna get to it.
The tribe that destroyed their family and their tribe. Yeah,
it was a loving arrangement.
Very loving.
Shows that Rahab and her entire household were miraculously spared. Why?
Jericho?
Because Rahab exercised faith in Jehovah.
Isn't Rahab?
Or what about Joshua chapters 9 and 10? Talks about how Jehovah spared the Gibeonites, who were actually in line for destruction because they exercised faith in Jehovah. Now, that's just a couple of examples.
But so if you exercise faith in Jehovah, then it's fine. You can go to war, and you'll be fine. You'll be dandy. Like, that's the solution, right? Every single pause phase. Like, what is wrong with Stephen? Every single time you pause, it's like just doing the most ridiculous face ever.
Gosh, Max, the Gibeonites didn't have to be spared, but God spared them. I just think he sounds like Goofy a little bit.
Are people spared because of their obedience and faith? No.
Well, they could be, though.
The civilian
are people spared because of their obedience and faith? It could be if God wanted that to be.
Exactly.
The only reason it's no,
like God didn't care about that.
Yeah, the only reason it's no is God doesn't care, or he doesn't exist.
You know, we're all over here complaining about world leaders who allow and proliferate wars, but really God could just clear all of this up and all wars and all genocides immediately.
Yeah,
so,
I in one of my videos on my channel, I was talking about how I could solve the Midianite problem much better than God could in non-violent, non-bloody ways, and far more impressive. Like and that was just something that's off the cuff. I was like, I came with a better solution than God did here.
Yeah.
And so I was like, does that mean I'm better than God, or does that mean I'm just better than the guy who thought he was writing about God?
The fact that you could even think something like that just proves how haughty you are, that you can't see that there is some magical, invisible reason why it was perfectly fine for God to allow all those people to be murdered.
I'm just blinded by pride.
You think you're superior, and you would have written a better book. Like I bet you think in your high mighty horse that, oh, if I would have written the Bible, I would have said not to force yourself on anybody, instead of adding 2 times how important it is that you shouldn't cook a calf in its mother's milk.
Yep.
That you don't have your preference, like your priorities is set up straight. Like, no,
you're absolutely correct. I need to step back and focus inward, and not let my moral outrage get in the way of me worshiping this one true God.
Yeah. Oh, I would have. You shouldn't own other people. Come on.
Oh, God could have just snapped his fingers and killed everyone painlessly. Like, no, that wouldn't have been as cool as if you get to let a bunch of guys murder people with swords.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, if I do a flood to kill all of the bad people, then it would have worked because no bad people would have existed afterward. Like, no, you have to do a flood, you have to do like an apocalypse, and then it has to not work. So people are like, oh well, I mean, Armageddon is gonna come, but like maybe it doesn't work, you know? Maybe it's also like a little oopsie again.
Good comment from the governor here. I'm probably one of the few XJWs that spent 20 years in the armed forces. There are perfectly legitimate reasons to fight a war. Start with World War II and the Nazis. Yeah. What if you live in Ukraine? Yeah, I mean, if a imperialist nation starts occupying you, and then you should defend yourself.
Yeah, like what if you live in Palestine, right? I mean, what?
Exactly. What? Yes, if you're living under occupation and you're being bombed and stuff, whatever. Ideally, war wouldn't exist, but I don't believe in a magic God that could stop all wars. Yeah. So I don't have this problem that Stephen Lett has.
Obviously,
I don't have a lot of problems that he has.
Obviously, war is bad, and you don't want to kill anybody, but we live in the world that we live in, and if you have a military force coming in to destroy you or to take over, and you have to defend yourself.
Every now and then you gotta kill some people. Like you gotta do it. Like you're not happy about it, but you gotta do it.
If somebody busts into my house, I am setting both my corgis on them, and so
that's right. Oh my God, the wrath of Peaches and Bo.
That's too much. That is too much, actually.
2 corgis.
Greater than the soldier casualties when they drop their bombs. The collateral damage, as they call it, often results in substantial death of innocent people.
Want to talk about collateral damage? What about Jericho?
The Israelite
Sodom and
Jericho was the equivalent of dropping an atom bomb on a city. I mean, it's like
but
collateral damage.
Stephen Lett believes that Jehovah has collateral damage because some people who he destroyed maybe risen up in paradise again. So even Jehovah did collateral damage.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, doesn't believe this shit.
Excellent point.
Thanks to Rocket.
Jehovah's Witness literally makes no sense. You can literally find a contradiction with anything that they say if you just look hard enough. That's it.
Can you still hear me? Bo is trying to unplug my microphone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we hear you.
He's really going at that.
Soldiers were required to conduct their warfare according to Jehovah's guidelines.
Kill the non-virgins. Take the virgins for yourself. Yeah. That's a guideline from Jehovah.
Open up to Deuteronomy chapter 23, please.
Oh yeah, some of the best 23. Wars. In Deuteronomy.
And notice what Jehovah told the Israelite army.
Let's read my cherry pick scripture.
Deuteronomy 23, beginning in verse 9.
You're going to love this.
When you are encamped against your enemies, you should avoid anything bad. Look at verse 12.
Wow. Oh, he skipped
so specific.
Place should be designated for use outside the camp.
Hey, what if you think that killing people is bad? Are you allowed to avoid that?
No.
Go out there and relieve themselves. See, why? Look at verse 14. Go out there. A private place should be designated for use outside the camp. They would go out there and relieve themselves. See,
what?
Yeah,
These
cats do
people
this.
taking a shit?
Yeah, poop is stinky. Even cats.
Yeah,
know
poop
this.
is bad. Like it was a clean place, literally, because you're not
godly latrines. Wow, this is interesting. Didn't expect poop content.
Look at verse 14.
He's skipping a lot.
Jehovah your God is walking about within your camp to deliver you and to hand over your enemies to you.
Not really.
And your camp must be holy, so that he does not see anything indecent in you and turn away from accompanying you.
Oh,
yes,
how
Jehovah
nice.
required cleanliness among these Israelite soldiers.
Well, that's the concern that a lot of people have is, well, war, there's so many germs. Where are they going to poop?
No, but look, I just want to read you this because I watched this yesterday and I read this in my live stream because Stephen Lett is making a huge deal about like the high standard, like, you know, Israelites were the most moral army on earth. You wouldn't even know about how moral they were. Like they always were amazing. They followed Jehovah's standards. But if you read Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 10 to 13, it says, when you go to war, this is literally what Jehovah told the Israelites that they should do. This is Jehovah's standards about war. When you go to war against your enemies and the Lord your God delivers them into your hands and you take captives. If you notice among the captives a beautiful woman and are attracted to her, you may take her as your wife. But look, you can't just take her as your wife.
Deuteronomy 21?
Okay? Deuteronomy 21, verse 11. I'm at.
Okay.
The 12 says, bring her into your home and have her shave her head, trim her nails, and put aside the clothes she was wearing when captured. Because obviously, like you need to clean her up. It's about cleanliness, right?
That's right.
After she has lived in your house and mourn her father and mourn for a full month, then you may go to her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. Because, you know, like how beautiful it is. How beautiful it is that when you take hostages and you're like, hey, I want to force myself on this lady who's a virgin, who's a young virgin, kind of makes my balls tickle a little bit. And then in the last provision in chapter 14, it says, I'm reading the New International Version, by the way, so there may be a little difference, but it's fine because that way Jehovah's Witnesses can see that, you know, the Jehovah's Witness Bible also says that. The 14th verse, the last one. If you are not pleased with her, let her go wherever she wishes. You must not sell her or treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. Since you fucked her, she's damaged goods. So, you know, you can fuck like somebody that you capture as a captive. And then you can just grab her, make her your wife, consummate, and then if you don't like it, just leave her. You can't sell her as a slave though, because you know, that's already fucked. Like literally, because that's your property. Like, but you have to like let her go as your. That is what Stephen Lett is talking about. Like Jehovah's like amazing righteous standards for war. Like this is what Stephen Lett thinks it made war okay then, but makes war not okay now. Like, which is just very stupid.
Yeah, he skipped over a lot in his selective readings.
Because actually they were sanctified.
Let's just talk about how they bury their poop though.
I know, right? Well, it
that's
was
important.
What about soldiers today? Obviously, very different. In fact, the Insight book
I was muted.
About how that
really quick. I wanted to just kind of work off something Danny just said there. Let's imagine the governing body was back in the Israelite times, and they're making these videos to guide the Israelites in these things. And let's make an internal training video about what to do when the girl you captured after 30 days doesn't want to cooperate with becoming your wife.
Yeah, do like a nice Bethel training video.
Imagine that working it out. Like, it's been 30 days and you're still hung up on the fact that I killed your family and burned your village to the ground. Come on, let's open this scroll and read this scripture.
And you got this sleepy guy like, I understand why you would be upset by that, but
it would be poorly paced.
You might find encouraging.
It would be poorly paced and devoid of any energy or charisma. Just an awkward pause, like,
yes. It can be hard when the wife that you took because you found hot does not put out. It can be hard. I understand.
Yeah.
The virgin Midianites versus the Chad Israelites.
Elder Abraham, my slave girl's constantly trying to escape. What do I do?
Just stone her. Don't worry about it.
To be honest, Brother Abraham, we have been struggling since this transition to having a third wife in the house.
We all, and folks in the audience, obviously we know this. We laugh at this because it's how we cope with these atrocities that they're trying to like put forward as this is holy. You know, like obviously we're not laughing at this. We're laughing at the idea that this is being propped up as holy.
Yeah, the absurdity of it. I mean, thankfully none of this actually happened, so it's fine.
Yes,
thankfully. The Insight book talks about how that they were certainly not allowed to rape any of the conquered cities' women.
Well, that's
aren't they?
A lie.
Did we just read that? Did we just read that? We could just notice how he doesn't quote anything because he can't, because that's not a thing in the Bible.
Yeah, he references the Insight book offhandedly. In fact, they couldn't even marry such a woman for 1 month. Wow, they had to wait a whole month after killing her whole family.
Yeah, they couldn't even marry such a woman.
We murdered their families. We murdered these girls' families, but rape is just going over the line. Like that's yeah, obviously.
It's like he really wants me to make an edit of this video. I have just throwing out a word like that.
3 of the Insight book, you can get a lot of Jehovah's guidelines that he gave to the Israelite soldiers. Now, one more difference.
Just get it from the Bible.
Jehovah fought with the Israelites, giving them miraculous victories.
Unless there was too many cow pies on the floor, on the ground in the camp, and then he wouldn't fight with them.
Unless they were too messy, and then he wouldn't help them.
Of many that could be related. How was the Battle of Jericho won?
Many. We could cite many examples.
Well, the priests blew horns. The military force marched. The army shouted, and the walls fell flat. Jehovah gave him that victory.
His face is
Or what about
fucked.
the victory of the Gibeonites, the victory over the kings that attacked them?
Is he a little uncomfortable
Joshua
about
10:11
lying?
says, Jehovah hurled great hailstones from the sky, so that more died from the hail than from the sword of the Israelites.
But there wasn't no death from the Israelites. He didn't spare his people the trauma of having to murder people on his behalf, let alone the actual people who were murdered.
And also, some of the people that he killed with hail may get resurrected in Armageddon. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, we learned that recently.
Welcome back.
Some of them were killed accidentally.
Welcome back. What's the last thing you remember? Made me get hit in the face with a gigantic hailstone from God.
Oh my God, Jenny Bloom, I don't know why my 14-year-old wife keeps crying. It's been 2 months since I killed her family, and her hair is starting to grow back as she broke in her... I forgot the detail that they shave her head. Jesus.
It's true.
Well, unlike today, Jehovah fought with the Israelites. So there we have 5 differences.
It really is night and day, isn't it?
See, unlike today, God's people were gathered in one nation. So they didn't go up against their brothers when they went into war. And secondly, Jehovah personally judged those executed as worthy of such. Third, the Israelite wars were
except for the ones coming back.
Only selected.
Yeah, I mean, this is
worthy of execution. Worthy of execution, and then worthy of resurrection.
Yeah, because this is the whole point of
what a flip-flop.
The last annual meeting was them saying, like, we can't be so dogmatic as to say that nobody from Sodom and Gomorrah is going to get resurrected. We don't know that. Maybe some people who died in the flood were just, you know, collateral damage. And
they pick the worst things to not be dogmatic on.
But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It really contradicts itself.
The Israelite soldiers were required to conduct their warfare according to Jehovah's strict guidelines
regarding poop.
And number 5, Jehovah fought with the Israelites,
sometimes
giving them miraculous victories.
Unless they were up against iron chariots. Then, yeah, they couldn't stand against those.
Yeah,
the Israelite wars were holy wars, but the wars of today's wicked world are anything but holy. No wonder Jesus said that theocratic warfare would no longer include the use of physical weapons.
Just
Remember
lies.
What he said in Matthew 26:52? He said, "Those that take up the sword will die, perish by the sword." and he taught his followers.
And then later in Revelation, he
harm
returns with a sword.
Yeah, and in fact, they just did a whole big presentation where they depict Jesus with a gigantic sword, like coming after tanks.
Yeah,
and
it comes out of his mouth,
stuff.
right? He has a sword protruding from his mouth.
No,
that's in Revelation, right?
Well, that's in Revelation. The thing that they painted didn't have that awesome part of it, unfortunately. But
no, they put the sword in his hand, which I'm like, that's not biblically accurate. It's supposed to be coming out of his mouth, man. Like, it never hands a sword.
Well, we did it, folks. We really did it. We learned the truth. I think we're all convinced.
I feel so much closer to God now. Thank you, Steve.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad that I had support. I had friends to watch that with, because that was a lot. But it went by like a breeze.